My name is Tierney Greenhoe, and today I will be presenting on good health and how it affects happiness and satisfaction at work. Originally, when I was looking at the stimulus articles, one in particular caught my interest, and that was A World Without Work by Derek Thompson. In his article, he spoke about how the jobless don't spend their time socializing or taking up new hobbies. Instead, they watch TV or sleep. This brought forward a couple philosophies that I compared and contrasted, and that was the idea of free time. Some people would argue that the more free time they have, the more they can relax and the happier they will be. Other people would argue that they need to fill this free time with things like physical activity to be happy. Seeing these opposing perspectives brought me to my initial and ultimate question. Does increased levels of physical activity in the workplace correlate with higher job satisfaction and productivity? First, I sought to find information about how increased physical activity can affect already existing complaints at or during work. These two studies, the first by Toledo, who is a postdoctoral researcher from the University of Bergen, and the second by Santos with master's degrees in physical therapy and doctoral programs, looked at specific complaints. The study by Toledo focused on musculoskeletal complaints, and these complaints have long-term effects such as lasting pain, and they can be lifelong. The second study by Santos focused mainly on fatigue complaints, which can have lifelong effects such as heart disease, depression, and more. Both of these researchers performed a study in which they took work participants who were complaining of these musculoskeletal and fatigue problems, and they incorporated exercise into their daily routines. After a week of this exercise, both scientists reported that their participants were reporting decreased complaints of the fatigue and the musculoskeletal complaints, but were reporting also increased production and productivity and satisfaction with their work. While this is true, there are still many people who would argue that you can deny the health benefits because sometimes it just doesn't work. These counter-arguments include a couple displayed here. The first by Marzuki, who is Faculty of Civil and Environmental Engineering, argues that physical activity just simply cannot be the sole factor affecting job productivity. He argues that there are other factors such as job characteristics, rewards, superior and coworker relationships, and feelings of higher order that may overcome the idea of physical activity. The second, more common argument that people would argue are those of the author and psychologist Friedman. He argues that we are simply too busy in our daily lives to incorporate physical activity at work every single day. Physical activity costs time and money that we often just don't have. While this is true, there are still too many health benefits that we cannot turn down. For example, in a study by Ben Nair, who is from the Carlson School of Management in Minneapolis, he compared two study groups. There was one labeled Walkers 1, who would walk faster and more on a daily basis at work, as compared to the second group labeled Walkers 2, who walked slower and less. He allowed these groups to walk for a week's time. At the end of the week, he had the walkers self-evaluate themselves in regards to their performance at work. Walkers 1 reported a group average of 7.37% satisfaction across the board. So they were more satisfied with their work than Walkers 2, who averaged 6.98 out of 10. So Walkers 1, as you can see, who walked more and faster, you can see the correlation between increased physical activity with the increased productivity. Similarly, there were studies performed on our youth that found the same results. For example, a study from the University of Illinois focused on 9 and 10-year-olds, and they found that these youth performed significantly better on a wide variety of standardized tests after they had had 20 minutes of exercise. A second similar research on youth by researchers from North Carolina found the same effect, that after physical activity, the youth were more likely to be focused on learning. This can be seen in thousands of studies for one main reason: science. When we are physically active, our body is stimulated. When we stimulate our body, there is a chemical in our brain that releases called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. This brain-derived neurotrophic factor helps the neurons and synapses develop and grow in our brain. The synapses are what our thought process comes from. So the more we exercise and release this chemical, the more our synapses will develop and the better our thought process will become. So we can both logically and scientifically see that yes, physical activity does increase job satisfaction and productivity. But how can we incorporate physical activity in such a way that we don't dread doing it every single day? There are three main solutions. The first is to choose a physical activity that truly interests you. If you do this, you will be more willing to participate daily because you'll look forward to it rather than dreading it. The second solution is to invest at becoming a master at the activity. If you invest at becoming a master, you'll have incentive daily to get better and better so you can be this master. The third is to do an activity as part of a group rather than as an individual. If we are part of a group, we not only have the support of the others in the group, but we'll also be held accountable for participating daily. So with these three solutions, we can incorporate the physical activity that boosts our productivity at work. There are my sources.
All right, thank you. Leave us a minute to find a couple questions here for you.
Okay. 104.
What information did you need or desire that you weren't actually able to find or locate? And then how did you go about trying to find that?
So originally my question was actually completely different. And I was looking at a question that focused on the different levels of physical activity. So I was going to look from someone who worked a desk job to someone who maybe worked at a hospital all the way up to the professional athlete. And I found that that was way too specific of a question because you couldn't find research or studies done on those specific levels of physical activity. So I found when I made the question more broad on physical activity and its effects overall in the workplace, then I was far more able to find like the studies that I found and the way that they saw the physical activity affect the workers and how the workers responded to that.
Okay, thank you.
If you had more time, what additional research would you conduct related to physical activity that you addressed in your presentation?
Well, I mean, kind of like I just said, I started with a more specific question, and if I could actually perform some studies and maybe actually take my own time and go into places and take a few desk jobs, take a few hospital workers, and take a few professional athletes, I would actually still like to see that difference in the level of physical activity and how it affects the work productivity because, I mean, in my opinion, I would say that someone who's sitting at a desk is a little bit less happy than maybe the professional athlete who gets to go do what they love every day. So I'd like to see how that different level of physical activity can still affect the workplace.
All right, thank you.